Not again. Come on. I did everything right. Turkeys. I'm not I'm not happy with the YouTube app again because apparently, even though my phone has been sideways since I've turned it on down here and I navigated through it sideways, this stream is going to be a vertical stream, and if I were to stop it and start it over, then it doesn't. Can I do anything? No, I can't do anything. I can't do much. Yeah, then it makes a whole new link with no thumbnail and all this, and it's. Hey, Sean, this live stream. First of all, thank you. If you clicked on this after seeing that thumbnail of me, looking cool from an old photo. Thanks for clicking on it. Thanks for being interested. What I wanted to talk about was the idea of a creative legacy. And I don't mean like a legacy that is creative, but rather a legacy within the realm of creativity and art. And you can think of people, I'm sure, that have legacies that matter to you, that have impacted you in some ways. And so I wanted to talk about what that is, what that impact is, to talk about who impacts me, and then a final question that I put to you. And so thanks for hanging out for a minute. It's not going to be a long one tonight, and that's fine because it's vertical, and it's so stupid that it's vertical, and it's the YouTube app's fault. I'm sorry. If you're tuning in and you're seeing that it's vertical, not my fault. So when I think about a creative legacy, when I think about an impact that someone has had on me, I think of two different things. There's two kinds of creative impact, maybe three, but the main two are people whose work has had an impact on me. And I would put, without a lot of thought in this, I'd put people like your Casey Neistat, your Robert Rodriguez, like directors, Spielberg, the people who create stuff that is similar to the stuff that you create or want to create, and that inspired you to do it in the first place. Maybe made it seem attainable and approachable, or maybe it gives you a horizon for which to aim. And that's a fun one. That's a fun way to find impact. And the dawn of social media has made that so much more accessible, where there are so many opportunities to connect with creators. And I'm using creator in the broad sense, not just like a YouTube creator, but famous directors, actors, artists, musicians, designers, whatever you're imagining, whatever you do. I do video production. I make videos, but you may not do that. But to whomever you look up to, they have an impact, and that's a very cool thing. That legacy they have, that impact that they have, it's a neat thing because it guides you. It guides you, and it makes things seem possible when they may not have before. It may give you ideas when you may not have any, or it may not realize that you have any. And it gives you an opportunity when you're approaching your own project, when you stop for a second and think, well, how would this person have done this project? And how would that person have done the project? These two people I really like. And how would I do it? Maybe somewhere in the middle. And it creates the impact that these creators have on you, and all the different directions that they pull you, creates your own unique path. And that's a really, really cool thing. And if I could, I've talked before about the book Steal Like an Artist. And if I could, I would say that there's a great line in there that I'm not stealing, although the book's sort of okay with that. But they're talking about if you're approaching a project, imagine your 5 favorite creators. Just picture them. And in whatever discipline you take on, picture your 5 favorite people, and then think, if they did this project, or if you were their boss, if you were their producer, how would you pull from each of their unique skill sets and styles to create something different, where you wouldn't want it to be Since we're on YouTube, I'll use some YouTube examples. People like uh, Casey Neistat's An Easy One, um, and I'm drawing a total blank on these. I don't want to say Peter McKinnon, but I'm going to say Peter McKinnon. Um, but like that whole group, you say, okay, if just Casey did this, I sort of know what it would look like. If just Peter did this, I know what it would look like. If just whoever did this, I sort of know what it would look like. Come on, YouTube. I don't ask for much. I stream once a week. I don't know what's happening. But my point is, the app is glitching and it's saying I'm not connected. Trust me, I'm connected. Sorry for the vertical choppy stream tonight. But what I was saying is, you've got, if you can examine the impact that these people have to pull from that and say, I want it to look a little bit like this, a little bit like this, a little bit like this, and that's going to be my style. That's cool, and that's awesome, and that's one of the most amazing things that these legacies can create for people is that style. They help shape new styles, and by pushing the boundaries, they open up things, and maybe they did something that was kind of neat, and it prompted you to do something similar, but maybe even more so. And this is how art progresses, and that legacy, that inspiration is a very cool thing, and it's a very important thing. But then the other more personal element of impact in a creative world comes from genuine like business opportunity or connections or networking or being offered a job, things like that. And it's easy for me to think of the people without whom I would not be here doing what I do now. And I love what I do now. And I've said before that these streams are an exercise for me. I'm not saying like, yeah, I wouldn't be the successful streamer you see with no one watching right now if it weren't for these people. And I almost wouldn't blame anyone for that. But with the things I do professionally, the work that I make money doing, it's easy to connect some dots and say, well, the only reason I got these 2 gigs was because of this. And the only reason that I was able to hire these people was because of that. And it's those impacts that are really, really important. And if you do anything for hire, if you do anything where you've made money creatively, I bet that you can really quickly come up with a short list of people who made that possible. Because your first jobs have to come from somewhere. Someone has to take a chance on you. And if not, then you're doing something pro bono, and it still requires someone to take a chance on you, a friend to lend some time or to lend themselves as a model. There are things that have that impact on giving you the momentum to create, which opens you up to making revenue and building on that and building a portfolio and growing and growing. And then there's times within your development as a professional that you level up and that you start doing different things. And I'm on the fence about whether or not I want to make this series of YouTube videos sort of calling out some of my favorite people who have had a very tangible impact on me. And it borderlines like fangirling out for people who I don't think a lot of people would put on a pedestal, but without whom I would not be where I am. And one example, this could be weird, but one example is my buddy Dane. And I could tell the Dane story if I haven't before, but I'll hyper summarize it to say that I really liked these videos that this climbing gym was putting out. And I kept asking, I was friends with the owners of the climbing gym. I'm like, who is making your videos? That's awesome. I'd love to get to know them. I was very inexperienced at the time. And they were like, it's this guy, Dane. Here's his email. So I emailed Dane, and then 6 months, nothing. I email him like a year later, nothing. And like 2 years after that, I asked one more time of the owners. I'm like, will you reintroduce us? And they did. And I got together with Dane and had a very awkward first meeting where he was like working and backing up some stuff and on his laptop. And I'm like lobbing questions at him that he's patient enough to answer. But from his perspective at this point, I'm just some dude who hunted him down and wanted to ask him questions. And that was in like October of 2017. And in February of 2018, after having not talked since October, he reached out and he's like, hey, I need some help on a job. Can you do it? He called on a Sunday. He's like, I need help on Monday, tomorrow. Are you available? It's like, yes, I am. And then through that job, that's how I met David, with whom I host the Hardy and Sons podcast. Brett, Keith, there's people that I've met through that, and then through David and Dane, I met Sean Kirkland, and he and I have this budding relationship. But there's people that I've met, and I can trace so many things back to this moment where Dane gave me this chance to make something, and that's one example where that's how I got tied into working with a crew, starting to understand how life is different as a one-man band, because somebody's got to give you that chance. That's a tough one to just make up. It's hard to find people who work for you if you've never done anything before. And so you got to get in somehow, and somebody's got to give you that opportunity. So that impact, that legacy is a really, really important thing. And for me, like I said, it borderlines on fangirl. And now Dane has become a very good friend, and he has since moved to Colorado, and I miss him dearly, and working with him on these things. And that legacy is something that people have had on me, and you can probably think of these people who have had that impact on you, where the legacy is not necessarily like, oh, look at this shot they did. Like they probably do great work if you wanted to work with them. But then the other layer of that is the impact that they have on your career and the opportunities that they give you, which lets you build your portfolio. And from that, you can step to the next level, and so on and so on and so on, until you've built a career, hopefully, of things that you enjoy. That's a pretty sweet thing. And it's that impact that I'm going to challenge you, if you're watching this at whatever point. Think of who those people are. Think of the people who inspire you with their artistry. But think of the people who have gone out on a limb and given you an opportunity, and their legacy to you is not a body of work. It's not an ethos or a style, but their legacy is a gateway to revenue for you, a gateway to opportunity, a gateway to more connections. That legacy is a really, really important one. And this all hit me last week. I had a conversation with somebody who was watching one of these YouTube lives, and then we connected afterwards, and it looks like we're going to have an opportunity to work together in the next few weeks. But it was this moment where they were being very grateful at the opportunity to potentially work together. They don't have a ton of experience in video in particular. And as I was having this conversation, like, it was weird for me. I'm like, I'm not used to the dynamic where somebody is just like, thank you so much, I'm excited to learn from you. And it was flattering but unexpected. And then it put me in that spot of like, oh, wait, I know exactly what this is like. And part of the disconnection is not that I'm a better creator. And that's my mindset when I first started making these steps and being given these opportunities. My mindset was not my mindset was very much, Dane, I'll use the Dane example. Dane is so much better than I am. He's so much better than I am. Not only does he have the experience, the connections, and things like that, but his work, his actual work, when he touches a camera, it's better than when I touch a camera. And there's things that you can learn from that. And I'm very good at producing things. I'm very good at editing things. I'm very good at working with documentary style footage. There's a lot that I'm not great at. And when I was talking to this photographer, and he was saying these very flattering things about the potential to work together, my first instinct was like, wait, look at your photos. You're better than I am. Your work looks better than my work does. I don't know what you're so jazzed about working with me for. That doesn't make, like, as much, like, sure, it's going to be cool and yeah, opportunity. But I was so hung up on that piece of like, well, my legacy isn't like, whoa, somebody would get to work with the great Sean Hodley on creating something. They've seen my work. It wasn't that part of it. It was the opportunity for work. And when I rewind back to that same spot of when I was first working with Dane and getting these opportunities, yes, I had skill work to do, but the other part was I felt capable. I felt like I could do stuff, but it's really tough to get a chance and to break into this industry in some ways. Somebody's gotta open the door for you. It can be difficult to just shove your way in. And that's that important part of the legacy that I'm trying to get on. And what it took me a while to realize is not that this person was necessarily stoked to like learn how I hold a camera and my settings and how I play with light or anything like that, but more so the takeaway was that there's somebody who has established themselves as a photographer, but getting into video is tough. And those first jobs, I remember my first jobs, they're tough. And somebody's got to take a chance on you. And that gets so much easier when somebody who has that established career, that established client base brings you in and instantly you level up. And and that's what hit me is my legacy has the potential not just to be like, oh wow, look at this amazing vertical choppy YouTube live stream he put together with a handheld microphone in his basement. Wow, what a visionary. It's not that, but my legacy in some ways, or at least a part of it, and a part of everyone's legacy is who along the way can you have that impact on, not just with your style and with the things that you create and your technique, but with your ability to bring people along with you, because that is something that will outlive any piece of work that you may put into the ethos. Anything that you do will pale in comparison to the people that you equip to do it as well. And there's a few people that I've worked with over the years that were very inexperienced when we first started, and now I'm seeing them do more and more work. There's people that I'm calling more and more often that hadn't done much at first when we started working together. And it's so cool to look back. And I had one of these people ask me, like, hey, somebody was asking me if I'd be willing to help them. And they asked me for advice that they could pass on. And that was this sea change moment of, wow, not only did the time that I took with this individual have an impact on them, and they've expressed that to me, and that means the absolute world, but to know that they're passing that on. And I keep using Dane as the example, but I hinted on it before. I'm thinking about doing a series where I would just tell these stories because they're important. They're as important as you could find any YouTube video of like, wow, look at, what was it, 1917, and like, wow, this amazing video. This whole movie seems like this one-er amazing. Like, wow, that's one thing. But to have the impact to equip other people to do this and to have that live on, that's so important. And those stories need to be told because, like me, people lose sight of that power that they have, that impact that you can have of the connection, of equipping someone, empowering them to do work that they weren't doing before, but they could do with your help. And you may not think that you have this amazing client portfolio and you can bring all these people on. I certainly can't. But I know that there's little ways to bring in people where I can find room in my budgets and maybe add a photographer, add an editor, add pieces to it that not only improve the project because we're diversifying the crew, but have serious impacts on each and every one of those people. And yes, I could put my head down and do everything by myself, but the work would be a little worse. And when I'm done making stuff, then it's just sealed in a box and it's done. And when I'm not comparing myself here, but to the great people who are having these huge impacts on people, when you think of the great philosophers from time and some of the amazing scientists and mathematicians, there's always people who were their contemporaries, who were their students, who took those ideas and built on them and created these things. And you can trace some of these great ideas back through several thinkers, several philosophers to the origin of these ideas, and then follow it through to see where it went after that. And that's legacy. That's legacy, not any one idea that they had, any one piece of work, any video that you've made, any piece that you've designed, song that you've written. That's not the legacy. The legacy is who along the way were you able to lift up and bring with you, and lift up and send on their way, to where at the end of your career, you can say, yes, I have this body of work. You can look at my portfolio. Cool. But look at one person that's making things differently or making more things because of my impact. And that's a legacy. That's a very real legacy. And if you do it right, it can be done where that just cascades for generations. And that's absolutely what happened to me. And as I was talking to this person last week, this photographer, they were very grateful as I was saying, yeah, absolutely. Let's do stuff together. Don't hesitate to ask questions. I may not know all the answers, but we'll figure it out. I said, like, the reason that I'm doing this is because several people did it for me, and I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for the patience that a few people had to answer some really dumb questions. There's a DP named James McKenzie, who I know from playing Frisbee with 10, 15 years ago. And I remember like 8 years ago or something like that, I was trying to I needed a case to put a tripod in and a good camera bag. I had outgrown my stuff and I just didn't know. And James was like, hey, you should get an f-stop bag. I really like my f-stop bag. And this is a tripod case that I use. And behind me is the tripod case. And here is the f-stop bag, which I'm still using to this day and which still comes on every shoot with me. And even if the bag doesn't, the internal parts do, because that's what they do, and they're very helpful and handy that way, which is why James recommended it. And so it's the kind of thing of, he could have very easily been like, figure it out. Watch a YouTube video. Go do whatever. But his answer gave me some confidence to purchase this stuff, to dive into it. And equipping me in that way went a long way, not only to make me actually equipped to do these things, but gave me the confidence to try them and then to go out and do the work. And so that's my charge to you, is to say, yeah, take a minute and think about some of the people whose style has had an impact on you, who the legacy of their creations has had an impact on you. Then take a minute to think about the people who have equipped you and enabled you to move forward, to make stuff, and to be awesome. And then the last step, the most important step, is to come back and say, okay, well, who can I have that same impact on? Because that's what's going to matter. And when I think of like my greatest personal project, it's probably the Marshmallow Lesson, the short film I made in late 2019, and pulled out all the stops and asked for every favor I could ever ask from everyone in this industry, and made this 2-minute video that I absolutely love. But I hope that when my career has concluded, people don't look back and say like, oh, that's the guy that did the Marshmallow Lesson. That's the guy that live streamed on Tuesday nights for a little while. Instead, that there would be one person, maybe more, who would say like, that guy let me come and shoot photos one time and paid me what he could, and that launched me into this, and I met these people through that. Or that guy gave me the confidence, gave me a little bit of advice on gear, and then that opened up this whole thing where I could... That's the part that's really important. And reminding myself of that is essential, because it's a huge part of what we do. But you do it too, and it's so easy to say like, well, I don't really inspire, like I don't have this impact. I'm not a successful YouTuber like Sean. I don't have this impact. You do. The way that you talk to yourself, the way that you talk to other people on set with you, even if you're not hiring them, the way that you communicate with people in your YouTube comments and Instagram comments, all of these things are opportunities to build that legacy where you are equipping and empowering other people to do stuff. And that is the legacy that has serious meaning, and that is the only legacy that will truly live on forever and can be traced for years and years and generations to come. That's all. If you sat through this whole thing, I appreciate it so much, especially if you came back later to watch this when it wasn't live. Thanks for sitting through a vertical video. My sincerest apologies. It's the app's fault, and then it cut out. I don't know. I'm sorry. I really am. But Have a great day, night, whatever, wherever. See you later. Bye.